So, accept my apologies. We had a little bit longer practice today, a little bit longer weight session that we just came from. So that's where we were. So it was for a good cause. It was for our youths. Get a little bit better in the weight room on the practice field. So I apologize for that. Thank you guys for coming. I guess, Colin, I guess, you know, we're talking about practice planning and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I've found easier on these things is to let you guys kind of dictate what it is that you want to hear. You know, we can show you a myriad of things, and can you pull it up on your phone?
Yeah, I'm gonna run down and grab all that.
And we'll give you an example at some point. You know, hopefully today's practice plan on what we do. But the one thing I will say about practice planning, no matter what level that you're doing it on or for, is I think it's highly incumbent on the coach to make that a priority for your team. And what I mean by that is, you know, they're only going to be as good as the information and what you're teaching them. And you know, the onus is on us to be prepared. The onus is on us to get them organized. The onus is on us to teach them, you know, what it is that we want to get across. So, you know, for our staff, practice planning is an event. I mean, it's something that, you know, we think about a lot, we spend an inordinate amount of time doing, and it gets written and sometimes rewritten, and because that is really what your team's going to look like. So if you go into a practice unprepared, don't be shocked if your team doesn't seem to not seem right that day. And what I mean by unprepared is you know, do you have a concept of what it is that you want to teach for that day? Do you have multiple drills organized to be able to deliver that concept? You know, are you teaching too long? Are you teaching too short? What's the right time frame? You know, what is their attention span, you know, for a period of time? So that's the stuff that we talk about, but I don't know where everybody is in this room, and I would imagine it's probably from this level to this level. But the one main thing I will say that's consistent, and I've coached every single level of lacrosse, from 5 or 6 year old kids to national championship kids, it's whatever, however you prepare practice and what you present to them and how organized it is about how organized your team's going to be. So I'll just start with that, and I'll open it up to you guys for questions and thoughts or comments on that, and then we can roll through what we would typically do during the day. And you know, it's a different level, but it's similar conceptually to what you may want to try to implement to your kids. So does that make sense to everybody? So
I got a question. When you guys get it set, do you deviate ever, like, or are you like, whether it be time-wise? I know some coaches, it's like, we're 20 minutes and boom, we're on to the next one. No ifs, ands, or buts, or do you guys let it ride if you want to see a little more?
No, I think for the most part, we're pretty set on sticking to that plan. Yeah. Because we spend a lot of time crafting it, and you know, there are times where you know, we may be in a segment where it's feeling really good to all of us, and it's kind of like, you know, maybe we let them play a little bit longer, right? But next thing you know, there's 3 minutes gets chopped off there, and there's 2 minutes chopped off there. Next down, we're running short, probably 10 minutes. So, you know, I probably could do a better job of sticking to it. You know, and then look, you know, there's some days where, you know, today was a day. I mean, we went a little bit longer, but you know, our guys sucked, and I didn't like the way we were going about it, so we ran more. And you know, if that's going to cause us to go a little bit longer in practice, I'm okay with that, right? So, but to answer your question, I think we do a pretty good job of really trying to stay on task, because, you know, we want to get all of that in. And if we miss a segment, now how do we build that in tomorrow? Because this game was crafted about getting all of that information in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I think on the other side of the coin, holding your team accountable to things that they need to be able to accomplish, and if it's not good enough, making them 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe until they get it right. Like for us, it's maybe clearing or a microcosm of clearing. If we're not up to the standard of how we want to do that, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Do it again. And then there's also those times where we're doing a half-field transition numbers drill, and all of a sudden you find yourself, one thing that is really important to us is trying to keep a score as much as we can in the little drills that we do, because we're teaching competitiveness all the time. Sometimes it's tied at the end. And sometimes they can't score until 3 or 4 more reps in, or there is a rebuttal and they score, and so try to balance that and always kind of sort of having an opportunity for someone to win or make the shot or make the play.
Yeah.
Sometimes that'll take you a way too.
There are no ties on our field. You either win or you lose. And if that takes an extra couple minutes, that's a good point. We keep playing until somebody wins. So, good. Yeah.
Well, you do your instruction, you're going to run your specific drill, and you do your instructions and what you expect to see out of that drill. Once you do that, how much intervening do you do if you don't see what you like, or you want to take a teaching moment and say, hey, let's stop for a minute and talk about what we just did or saw or whatever?
That's a great point, and I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you don't want to be inundating them with information, so typically what happens before each one of those segments, we'll give them a few teaching points. People say we're looking for our sticks to the outside in this transfer in our ball, right? And we're looking for squaring the guy up every time he catches the ball, or we're looking for sticks out on approaches, and we'll just give them 2 or 3 things that we're trying to focus on in this drill. And then you let them play out of it, because there's that fine line between letting them learn, right, and then stopping it all the time and continuing to teach. So we segment some part of practice just for teaching. So we'll go through the practice plan, and this segment will be more for just doing the drill. And then this 10-minute segment, as you'll see on the screen, will be for teaching. So the offense will break and the defense will break, and those guys will be teaching the whole way through that process. From simple thing of stepping here, or where do we want our stick placement to. So we try to balance those segments in the full practice plan. So we're getting both teaching done and playing done.
To add to that, right, what Coach Holman does a really good job of is talking to guys when they're at the back of the line, right? If we're doing a 3-on-2 ground ball drill on both sides and there's 6, 7 people deep where you're going to have a two-minute rest potentially, Coach does a really good job of doing that, right? And then for the most part, I think as a staff, right, we see the game very similar, and when it is a little bit of a gong show out there, you can look around, and I look at these guys before anything happens, because we then step in, we kill it, and then we talk to the whole entire team. There's segments when we did riding and clearing today, or sorry, just clearing. I'm on the opposite end with the attack group, and I'm just whispering in their ear while Coach Gittleman's talking about the clear, right? Not the whole time, but a couple of quick tips on what they can do to help us clear the ball successfully. So there is I think the kids do enjoy when you bring them to the side, positive or negative, right? For that reassurance of, hey, I saw you do this, really good job, right? And a little slap on the butt. If you said something out loud 3 or 4 times that needs to be fixed and they do it again, it's like, hey, what's going on? Are you looking him in his eyes nice and tight if he's in a good spot or in a good space? So I think we, as a staff, do both, to your question, if that answers that.
Certainly an art form.
Yeah, and
There's a lot of intuition that goes into it. And the key to development and learning, especially on the athletics field, is as immediate feedback as you can provide. Because so many things happen in just one play on a lacrosse field that if you let it go 2 plays, 3 plays, that kid will forget about what you're talking about. And so many things would have happened between that point and when you want to make the coaching point, that sometimes having that immediate feedback, and that's why as a coach, your ability to attend and be so super aware of every little thing that happens is so important to be great at doing what we did.
I think one thing on that note too is what I've started doing. It's weird. I can't remember shit. I can't remember phone numbers, people's faces, names, whatever. I can remember a lacrosse play, like, I can remember exactly the first play that happened in our practice today, and it's like, for some reason, that just resonates. So it's easy for me to kind of look back through practice, but what I've done this year, and this has really helped me too, is I've taken a notepad out there, and as a coach, doing a certain drill, seeing certain things that maybe I don't want to stop it right now, but maybe I'll forget it or whatever, but just jot a little note down and as a reminder to the guys later, maybe when you get them in a huddle. On this drill, I saw these 2 or 3 things that we need to correct or work on. But it's a feel, like you know, it's teaching versus playing, and what's the balance of both. And that's why I think for us, it's important that we build just straight up teaching segments into every practice where we can get our hands on these guys for like a 10-minute segment and literally just pound away on what we want out of that segment. So I think you got to build both in the practice, and sometimes you just got to hold your whistle and let it play through, but maybe take a note and address it later. Does that make sense?
I think there's a big difference between a kid who's doing something wrong based on laziness or stubbornness versus a kid who's trying to do it right but not connecting. You know, he needs a few more reps. Maybe he's trying to get the approach right, but his feet aren't there yet. You just need to let him kind of grow into it. You need to let him sort of fail into it versus the kid who's just throwing off his back foot, throwing it sidearm underhand. Like, that's something we'll nip that in the butt right away, because we have tenets to our program and how we want to play that those are sort of non-negotiables. But when we see a kid who's trying, and he's trying to get better, that's when you hold your whistle. You know, when you can tell the group is really working to improve versus they're not giving it their all, there's a huge difference in my eyes between the two. And you have to have that feel for that.
Sure. Yeah.
So this may be going back more to your coaching 5-year-old days, but we find ourselves sometimes on the field with a variety of skill sets, and sometimes
just give it to the biggest, fastest guy and run down.
We
Don't
do
waste your time with all that.
Make a note. So sometimes we have, you know, if it's fall or spring, you know, more players out or less players. Sometimes we have more or less coaches. I'm just wondering your thoughts on integrating the practice with those who really know what they're doing. They may be in comp leagues, they catch and pass and do a lot of stuff more proficiently than this other group over here. We're happy to have them, and we want more kids coming out and being a part of it and trying it, but sometimes it's just the balance of trying to figure out how to get them in, keep them so that it doesn't kill the joy for the other kids who've got it going on and kind of know, but it also inspires them to kind of move on and do better.
Yeah, it's the age-old question. And a couple of things that come to mind for me with that is, you know, is trying to create an environment where they both feel that they're succeeding at it, right? So even if the kids that are less talented, you know, trying to get them integrated in a way. And one thing that comes back to me is I had this instance with little kids, is I took some of the older or better player kids and I kind of put them up on a pedestal in the sense of how can you help Johnny or Jimmy and Jake, like kind of almost putting responsibility on them.
Mentor?
Yeah, as a way for them to continue to grow into the game. So they weren't looking at that kid as like, shit, he can't catch a throw. They were looking at that kid as like, hey, that's my buddy, and I'm going to try to get him up to a level where I can get him on the field and play with me. So creating an environment where the older or better players have more responsibility back towards the guys that aren't quite as talented, instead of just looking at them as like, man, they're dragging me down. How can we get them to look at, if they got a little bit better, how much better could we all be? And rewarding them for that, and trying to integrate it that way. But, you know,
Yeah, I think too with that, like it's okay to separate those kids for a little bit of the practice. You know, you don't want to obviously have them one group's here for the hour-long practice. But you know, if you're doing a stick work drill, maybe you have 8 kids that are a little bit more talented and can connect those passes together. Maybe you take a step back and you can monitor them. And then you have the other group come over, and when they do a stick work drill or a shooting drill, maybe the players aren't feeding each other, maybe you're feeding the players, right? To just take a little responsibility off their plate. So, you know, because if you have players feeding each other, the balls are flying here, and then you can't actually achieve what you want to achieve. So I think kind of catering the drills in that way, you know, with the less talented group, maybe you're involved a little bit more, maybe you're doing some more feeding, etc. And then bringing them together when you can do, I would say, like ground balls or something that it's not where you don't have to go player to player. You know, it's something you can do a musical ground ball drill where if you have 15 players, you roll out 14 ground balls, and one player doesn't get one, you know, etc. So I think kind of just thinking about the drills that way. You know, I mean, we do player-to-player stick work drills, and we have 5 or 6 guys on our team that struggle to throw good passes, or you know, it's the same culprits. Yeah. So I think just, you know, maybe thinking about it in that way, you know, like if you're doing a shooting drill with the veteran group, they're feeding each other. But then when you have the less experienced group, you're feeding them for the shots and stuff like that.
And I think when those guys are separated like that, having the older guys or the better players watch the younger players, and again, trying to help them with some skill set. So if you have 3 or 4 really good guys with 3 or 4 guys that aren't quite matching them up and getting them to sit by the side, let those guys do their stuff, let them watch, you know, and help them a little bit, and then watch, maybe get the non-talented players to sit and watch the older guys do it. So they're starting to become, the whole thing about that is team, right? And trying to figure out how do you commingle, but there's got to be rewards for both parties to want to kind of come together, right? Because the guys that aren't as good, they know they're not as good. So you're not going to hide that. It's like, you don't throw the ball as well. And acknowledging some of that and saying, look, you know, it's okay. There's different skill sets at all levels. What we've got to try to figure out to do is how do we bring this together, and how do the better guys help the younger guys, and some of the younger guys can even help the older guys in some instances if you're watching them close enough. Maybe you've got a guy who can't catch and throw, but that little rascal is the best ground ball guy on the team. Well, he needs to be acknowledged that way, and the older guys need to look at him as someone that, wow, I want to be able to get a ground ball like that kid. So I think there's little ways you can try to, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. So I don't know if that made any sense.
Great feedback. Yeah, thank you.
Because you take the opportunity, these are life lessons. It's leadership, it's empathy, it's humility for the younger guy with the less experienced players. It's reinforcement opportunities for these kids, and also, like, as a coach, sort of monitoring how they're communicating to each other. Are they talking down, or are they lifting each other up? Sure. What a great experience for those kids who are maybe a little bit better to sort of give themselves more to something than just being the kid that gets the ball and goes and scores all the goals and getting praised for that.
And I think Adam makes a good point, and I think what I would do is just, it has to become a cultural thing. It has to become something that, like, we acknowledge this. We know that this is, it's not an issue, it's just where we all are, but at the end of the day, we are one team, and we all have to play together. And even telling them that, look, you know, I'm not still going to get the best kids out on the field all the time, right? Everybody deserves to play. We're not competing for a national championship here, all right? We all got to learn how to do this and get better, and this is part of growth. It's part of learning how to become a young person, and there's a lot more to it than just lacrosse and who we shoot harder. And I would clearly make it a cultural thing on my team, my program. Because if you don't, it's always going to be the have and the have-nots. And the parents see it, everybody knows it, and you know, it's divisive by nature, right? So how do you bridge the gap? I just spend more time thinking about that.
Good stuff, thanks.
Do you try to do defense one day, offense another day with the younger guys? Do you try to do it all in practice?
I don't, what age group are you thinking?
The fourth graders, fifth graders.
Yeah, I would just, it would be more all encompassing, you know, just,
Mix it up.
yeah, because their attention spans